What about what makes people happy then? You looked at that.
Yeah. So, uh, what makes people happy? I there's I read like 1,000 studies on happiness, and a lot of them, even ones that are really famous, I'm like, these studies aren't that good. They like interview like 100 undergraduate students, and they're like, so what makes you happy? I'm like how should I know that these 100 undergrad students or anything like anybody else? You're not like doing experiments. It's just was very underwhelming. But there are these new projects which are really cool. They're called experience sampling projects, and they basically ping people on their smartphones, and they say, what are you doing? Who are you with? And how happy are you? And they built a data set of like 3 million happy points. The biggest one, Mappiness, George McCarran, Susanna Brado, 3 million happy data points. And there are all these cool studies, and I get so excited because I just, as I said, very, very nerdy. So I'd like read one of these studies. They're like, people are happier. The same person do the same activity. The same people are happier when they're in nature by a lake, where they're happier when their environment is beautiful, where they're happiest going for a hike or having sex is the number one happy activity. And I'm kind of like, I was telling my friends this because I was working on the chapter, and I'm like, did you hear about this cool study? And they're like, do we need scientists to tell us this? Like, that's so obvious. Like, all these things that you're saying are painfully obvious. And I think there's profundity in the obviousness of the research on happiness, which is that the things that make you happy, like if you look, I have the happiness activity chart from Alex Bryson and George McCarran in one of my, and that's what I recommend people get as an iPhone case or hang it on your wall or whatever. And you look at that chart, it's almost like a chart from our hunter-gatherer days. It's like people are happy, like, having sex, taking walks, hunting and fishing, gardening, like just like these very outdoors, simple activities. And the things that are really low are these like very modern things like waiting on a line, dealing with a bureaucracy, working, internet, social media, very, very low. Computer games, really, really low. When you actually ping people, how happy are they? They rank very low. So I think it's good to keep in mind like the simplicity of the things that make people happy. And if you're not happy, I end the book. I say, what's the data-driven answer to life based on these 3 million happiness points and all this new data? And I go, the data-driven answer to life is to be with your love on an 80-degree and sunny day, overlooking a beautiful body of water, having sex. And like, which is, okay, not rocket science. It's not like scientists have found some like gel you put on yourself or some website you visit that's like the cure to happiness. It's these very old-fashioned, simple things. And I do recommend to people who are not happy, like think about how far your life is from those simple things from the data-driven answer to life. So like how much time are you spending in nature? How much time are you spending on the internet in comparison? How much time are you spending with the people who make you happy are friends and romantic partners, and like everybody else just doesn't make you happy.
You had a list of underrated activities, the things that tend to make people happier than they'd predict.
Yeah.
Exhibitions, museums, libraries, sports and exercise, drinking alcohol, gardening, and shopping or errands. And then the overrated activities that make people less happy than they think: sleeping, resting, relaxing, computer games, watching TV, eating, and browsing the internet. I'm surprised, and I was really surprised when I looked at the list of activities, that playing with pets wasn't higher. It's like maybe 15, I think. But dude, if you put a dog in this room, I'm not doing anything for the rest of the day. Like, that's me and the dog. Someone, you want to have some sex? It's like, no, sorry, I'm with the dog at the moment. So again, there's individual variation in this. Having sex with the person. No, don't do that. So, drinking alcohol was an interesting one, and I think that you talk about this. It's not necessarily just about what the activity does, but it's about what you're doing while you're in the activity, right? So drinking alcohol is often associated, it's socializing, you're spending time with friends, you're having a conversation. Maybe you're also at a show or a comedy event or watching a gig or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, drinking alcohol, what you're getting with the pet example is there probably is individual variation in these, and you don't have to. Although I think a danger with happiness is we exaggerate how much individual variation there is. So there have been studies where they've compared introverts and extroverts, and they say how much happier they are when they're by themselves or with other people. And both introverts and extroverts get the exact same boost from being with other people than being by themselves. Even though if you ask introverts, they're like, yeah, I really like being by myself. I really like being by myself. So I think there's a danger. Like I'd be a little wary if I were you. Like I'd ask you to actually track your happiness and see if you're getting as much happiness from pets as you might think, because I think we do tell ourselves these stories that are not always correct, and that we're like unique, and so I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think there's also different time spent with pets. So sometimes, like, if you're just like, like petting them, playing catch with them, that's one thing. If you're cleaning up their crap,
well, it's got to be spread across time, right? One thing that I thought that was interesting, is there a tension between happiness and meaning? So there's this Roy Baumeister study or paper that you've probably read about the tension that you have between these two different things. And there's a lot of things that we can do in the moment which makes us feel happy, sort of more on the hedonic side, but long-term doesn't necessarily create meaning. Did you think about this?
I did. Like, I think, like, for example, work scores very low on happiness. And I think, I don't know, the answer from that is just quit your job and,
live in nature.
Okay, so living, I don't, and the study that I referenced, Mappiness, isn't following people over 3 years and being like, you see kind of the in the moment happiness, and you don't necessarily see as much the long term things. I do think it's just you can. I think from these studies, you just can nudge yourself a little bit in the direction of things that make people happy. That's kind of wise without sacrificing everything that's meaningful to you. So don't if you read Don't Trust Your Gut, or you read these studies, you immediately quit your job and move to a lake. Like, I'd be like, that may be taking the advice a little too seriously. I think more clearly. But anybody who reads these studies and then the next weekend is deciding between sitting at home and playing computer games or going for a walk with your friends by the water, and is kind of uncertain, like, I'd really recommend you went with your friends on the walk by the water, just based on the data. So,
what did social media use do to people's happiness? You looked at that in depth.
Yeah. So in the Mappiness study, there are 26 leisure activities. The single lowest scoring leisure activity is using social media, which already says, wow, that's probably not so good for you. And there was a famous randomized controlled trial where they paid people to stop using Facebook. They randomly paid a group of people to stop using Facebook, and they reported an enormous decline in depressive symptoms. So I think there really is it's almost a cliche to say it, but there really is evidence that social media can make people miserable, for the obvious reason that it makes you feel like crap about your life. If you're seeing on Facebook like the curated version of everybody else's life. In my first book, Everybody Lies, I talk a lot about that and the difference between like social media and real life and Google searches. And on social media, when people describe their husbands, it's my husband is the best, the greatest, so cute and adorable. And that's like public, everyone's seeing it. And when they're searching my husband it's like my husband is a jerk, annoying, mean, like a totally different view of marriage.
Not having sex with me.
Not having sex with me, yeah. So social media, like, it's a cliche to say it, but it's just so true. It really is a dangerous game to play.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.